Lieu of California for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Meek, and thank you, Secretary Blinken, for your public service. When I served on active duty in the United States Air Force, I participated in Operation Pacific Haven, where we airlifted thousands and thousands of Kurds out of northern Iraq because Saddam Hussein was going to go in and kill them. We worked with the State Department and other U.S. agencies, and it was a very difficult mission. So I want to commend you and the State Department and all the U.S. personnel who executed an evacuation of over 120,000 people under immense danger. That was a remarkable feat that all of you did. And I also want to honor the 13 Marines that gave their lives in service to our country. What I'd like to ask you about is the document that started all of this, the February 29th document, 2020. That document was negotiated by the Trump administration with the Taliban, correct?
That's correct.
The Trump administration signed that document, correct?
That's correct.
And under that document, it had a very specific date for withdrawal of all U.S. forces. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
I'm going to read you what the document says because I think my Republican colleagues need to hear this and the American people. On the very first page of the February 29th, 2020 agreement that the Trump administration signed with the Taliban, it states, the United States is committed to withdraw from Afghanistan all military forces of the United States, its allies and coalition partners, including all non-diplomatic civilian personnel, private security contractors, trainers, advisors, and supporting services personnel within 14 months following announcement of this agreement. That's a very specific timeline, isn't it?
It is.
In fact, it gets even more specific. It says that in the first 135 days, the United States, its allies, and the coalition will withdraw all their forces from 5 military bases. Did Donald Trump do that?
He did.
Yeah. In fact, when you read this document, let's just be clear. This is a surrender document. Donald Trump surrendered to the Taliban, and he said, we are leaving Afghanistan. We're not coming back, and we're not going to fight you anymore. Now, our Republican colleagues want to say that somehow it's conditions-based. And did you notice that earlier, they didn't want you to talk about the conditions? Because the main condition is that the Taliban was going to stop attacking U.S. forces. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Do you know how many U.S. forces died in the first year of the Trump presidency in 2017, Secretary Blinken? Approximately 14.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many died in 2018, the second year of the Trump presidency? How many U.S. forces died in Afghanistan? Approximately 14. In 2019, the third year of the Trump presidency, do you know how many U.S. forces died in Afghanistan? Approximately 21. And then Republican colleagues say, hey, for a whole year and a half, U.S. forces didn't die. That's because the Taliban stopped attacking U.S. forces because of this agreement. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And if the Biden administration had somehow said, hey, just kidding, we're not leaving Afghanistan, we're going to renege on this agreement, the Taliban would have started attacking U.S. forces again. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, Donald Trump withdrew over 15,000 U.S. troops at the height in Afghanistan during his presidency, down to 2,500 by the time President Biden inherited office. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's about right. I think he had about 13,500 when the administration started, down to 2,500 when the administration ended.
So Donald Trump executed not only this surrender agreement, but also 70 to 80% of the surrender of the withdrawal. And he left you all with merely 2,500 U.S. troops, and the Taliban was still meeting their condition of not attacking U.S. forces. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
They literally put in a box that you had to withdraw all U.S. forces, or else they essentially would start attacking our forces again. Isn't that right?
Attacking our forces and engaging in an offensive against Afghanistan cities, which they'd refrain from.
And the reason we know intelligence wasn't manipulated is because the Trump administration, in fact, would not have agreed to a specific date certain to withdraw all U.S. forces if they knew the Afghan government would collapse in 11 days after that. Isn't that right?
It stands to reason.
In fact, it was a bipartisan, you can call it not understanding what's happening in Afghanistan, but this was happening over 20 years. Isn't that right? That we were getting rosy assessments on a bipartisan basis that turned out not to be all that accurate.
I believe that's correct. And certainly I saw that from my previous service in government.
Great. So let's just be clear here. It was Donald Trump who signed and negotiated the surrender agreement that, by the way, released 5,000 Taliban prisoners. Isn't that right?
It did release 5,000 prisoners, yes.
So Donald Trump, the administration, signed this agreement, negotiated it, executed it, and then President Biden completed the withdrawal. That is what happened.
Gentleman's time has expired.